The following section of additive lighting will be about adding auxiliary or artificial sources of light. Let's start this section on auxiliary light outdoors. Since the 1990s, I've used various battery-powered spotlights when I needed more light in a specific and a small area. These days, an LED spotlight is the way to go. This senior's face isn't receiving as much light as the rest of her. So a spotlight was the best solution to bring attention to her face. I like the fading sunlight on the brick wall, but if I use a reflector or some other source of broad light, it'll wash out the contrasty effect of the sunlight on those bricks. So a spotlight gave me the localized control that I needed to light her face, but not the bricks. I'll use a spotlight in tight quarters where I can't control the light with panels or other large lighting devices, but I still want a very precise result. The uncontrolled image shows a bright nose and some other problems. And the spotlight did a good job of overpowering those lighting issues. In order for this to work, the outside ambient light has to be rather dim. So this is a great technique to pull out of your hat as the light is fading at the end of the day. And this is how it looked before we added the diffused spotlight. By the time we got to the lake with this senior, it was very dark, but especially dark on her compared to the water, and I had to light her up. So I used a spotlight with a frosted diffuser on it to spread out the light beam. At that time in 2010, I was using a quartz spotlight. That's warm colored light, so when I color corrected for some of that warmth, the water went very blue, which I like. Also, that spotlight not only created the light for the exposure, but helped the camera focus in such dim light. But then it occurred to me that it could look better to bounce the light off of the water for a rippled look. I like this one better. Not every situation needs a powerful spotlight. As with the previous situation, in dim light we only need a little bit of light. In those cases, a simple flashlight will work. If you get a hardware store flashlight, though, look for one that has even color across the front beam pattern. Many have a green perimeter because of the way they use the LED and that internal parabolic reflector. Sometimes we overthink this stuff. Just a simple flashlight can be perfect. Without added light, this would need some strong facial editing to make it work. But here the flashlight really did the trick, and sometimes that's all it takes. LED lights don't just come in flashlights. You can get them in panels too, like this. And there are a bunch of different brands and sizes. This happens to be about a 6x10, and they're very nice. Now, I don't have or use this one anymore, but I'm showing a picture of it because you'll see it in examples and pullbacks in the subsequent images in this slideshow. The beauty of this device is that you can see what you're doing. The side benefit is bigger pupils and a brighter light for your camera to focus with. The application of this light isn't much different than a softbox. I start with making the light fairly flat. Then I just dial up the light until it looks pleasing. How much light from an LED panel should you use? Well, that depends on the look that you want. In this case, I wanted a softer look, with just enough to create a direction of light and fill in the shadows caused by the overcast lighting. That means I dial it up just to the point where I can see its effect, which is about when the LED equals the ambient light. If you use a handheld meter, put it next to the subject's face. When the light reads twice the value that it did without the LED now equals the ambient. Using the LED at full power causes higher contrast and specularity. Remember, it's a relatively small light. If you want a more dramatic look for an alley location or some urban concept, then I'd use the light at full power. But for this theme, using the LED at full power was way too much light. Because these lights are small, it can cause specularity and hard shadows. A way to avoid the harshness of a small light source is to keep the contrast low. The fuzzy flector here is doing two things. It's going to block the top light that makes this image look so bad. And it reflects a bit of fill light from the main LED light. I also set the exposure to include enough ambient light for fill light on her. These two things reduce the hard look a small main light could produce. In this setup, I used a 1 foot by 1 foot LED panel as the main light, a reflector for fill, and a small LED accent that her mom held. The result was nice, but I wondered if diffusing the main light might look nicer. So I used that panel that was used for the fill reflector to diffuse the main light. Then I blocked that panel from flaring into my lens with another panel. So now instead of a 1 by 1 area of light, it's now about a 4 by 6 area of light. And here's that result. This image shows both of them compared. It's a little hard to tell the difference because the first one has lower contrast, but the right one has a softer main light. Cropping in closer here, you should be able to see the difference. With this kind of lighting, it's pretty critical on its placement. And you can decide whether you want no light in the eyes or bring the light down to get light into his eyes. Again, it's WYSIWYG. The biggest benefit of any continuous lighting is the ability to precisely position it, or adjust the subject's head to best take advantage of it. Edge or accent light on the face needs to be done just right. This will be the location for the next series of images. And for a typical yearbook photo, we don't need anything fancy. Leaves will do. Turning the other way, this is what she'll see. We have good light for her, a main light, and since the building is there, I added a fill reflector on the ground. The frontal lighting is good, but her dark hair in front of her isn't sufficiently separated from the dark background. This is a job for accent light. So I turned on the LED panel, and while it's placed right, I could see that it was way too strong. So I turned it down to where it looked perfect to me. By the way, the accent looks warm here because the main light was the blue sky, remember? So when we color balance for that cool light, the 5800 degree accent light is warm in comparison. By the time we got to do this, it was very dark out, as you can see. So I needed to bring an LED light just to see. But as long as I had it there, I decided to use it as a fill light, since I couldn't drag the shutter long enough in the darkness for fill lighting. I had the LED placed just to the right of my tripod, with the main light to the left. There's also a bare flash lighting up the porch behind her. With the camera on aperture preferred auto exposure, the camera chose a shutter speed that overfilled her face. So I set the exposure compensation to shorten the shutter speed, thereby reducing the fill exposure. What if we place the fill light on the same side as the main softbox? In this case, it wasn't the answer because then we got sharp shadows from the fill light. A fill light's purpose is to reduce shadows caused by the main, not to create shadows of its own. So, a continuous light can be used in conjunction with a flash unit. But is there a drawback? Sure, you have to be careful that your subjects don't move when the shutter speeds get long. It's fine if they're stationary, but with an active pet, not a good idea. So with all the choices, how do you decide what type of lighting to use? Basically, the answer depends on the amount of light. With low light levels, we can use continuous lighting. But when it's bright outside, or as in the next example where the sky is the background, we need more light than an LED panel can provide. This was an overcast day and I wanted to use the sky in the image. So that meant having a strong enough light to get the sky to go gray. But as you can see, the LED light wasn't putting out enough light for that to happen. But this was done with a speed light in a softbox, which resulted in a better exposure on him and produced a darker sky. So LED lights are fine in low light conditions outside and for most situations inside, but not outdoors where it's fairly bright. And if we want to take it further, we can darken the sky even more by using a more powerful strobe. I talk about this more in the flash section.